And we are live. We are kicking off. Good evening. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this live episode of the All Dolphins podcast on Sunday, May 25, 2025. Oh, it's 5/5/25, 5/25/25. How about that? We're going to be talking a little bit of Dolphins tonight. Just some thoughts at the top of the show. Then we will do comments, questions from the folks kind enough to join me on this Sunday evening of Memorial Day weekend. And let's see where it takes us. And we'll go however long we need to go, or however short we need to go. As I said, not a whole lot happening with Dolphins world these last couple of days because they are on the Memorial Day weekend before they begin OTAs next week. That's right. The third and final phase of the offseason program will begin on Tuesday once everybody's back from the Memorial Day weekend holiday. In fact, based on his social media posting, we know Tyreek Hill has been in Canada doing some clinics. He tweeted Montreal, Quebec on Saturday. Then he had a Twitch live stream of a clinic camp he was doing in Toronto on Sunday, where presumably, I'm going to guess maybe he was dealing with some campers who were still upset about their hockey team's loss to South Florida's Florida Panthers, who are headed for a third consecutive Eastern Conference title, third consecutive Stanley Cup appearance, and hoping to make it 2 Stanley Cup titles in a row, which has brought about discussion on social media as to where that run ranks among South Florida franchises. And I guess as good a place as any to start. Where does that run and where do the Dolphins stand? The Dolphins' best run in franchise history obviously occurred, unfortunately, long before a lot of the folks watching tonight were born. This is the part where I should say, please like, subscribe, smash that like button, as the saying goes. Thanks for joining me, first and foremost. And as I mentioned, it was some 50 years ago when the Dolphins had their fabulous run, making the playoffs from 70 through 75. It's not the longest stretch of making the playoffs. However, it might be tied for it, but it was the one with the most success, with the Dolphins reaching the Super Bowl following the 1971, 1972, 1973 seasons. Included in that was the perfect season of 1972. And even more dominant run in the playoffs in 1973 when they won their 3 playoff games by 18, 17, and 17 points. And in 1972, and this always comes up in the discussion of the greatest teams of all time in the NFL, where the Dolphins' playoff wins of the 1972 perfect seasons were not overwhelming. They beat Cleveland 20-14. They beat Pittsburgh 21-17, and they beat Washington 14-7. And yes, they played at Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game, despite being 14-0 in the regular season. That's because at that time, lo and behold, the system was that the AFC Championship game was awarded, home field for that was awarded on a rotational basis between divisions, and it wasn't the Dolphins' turn to get that particular home game. They did get the home game in 1973 against the Oakland Raiders, won 27-10, and very well might have won a Super Bowl title again in 1974, if not for that crushing loss against the Oakland Raiders at Oakland, 28-26 in the game that became known as the Sea of Hands. And then after that, the offseason of 1975 is when Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, and Paul Warfield all left to sign with the World Football League, the very short-lived World Football League. And as memory serves, that was the end of the tenure of all 3 of those players with the Dolphins, except for Larry Zonka, who came back in 1979 for one last season after playing with the New York Giants. Anyway, if we were to rank that stretch, and that's easily the best stretch in Dolphin history, they made the playoffs every year from 1998 through 2001. 1997 through 2001, which is also 5 years, but never reached the AFC Championship game, let alone win a Super Bowl. So that doesn't match. Nice run in the early 80s, made the playoffs 5 years again. 1981 through 1985, appeared in 2 Super Bowls during that stretch, however, lost both of them. But nothing compares to that run in the early 1970s. I would put that run as the second most impressive for a South Florida sports franchise behind what the Miami Heat did in those 4 years where they had LeBron James, where they went to the NBA Finals 4 consecutive years, winning twice in the middle, losing against Dallas in the first year, against San Antonio in the fourth year, but the 2 titles in between. I think 4 straight years to the finals probably deserves top spot. Dolphins would be 2. Panthers now would be 3. But it could be still ongoing. They have to win one more game to defeat the Carolina Panthers. And I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about the Panthers. I do want to give a shout out to Jeff Klein if you're watching. Big congratulations. Jeff became father to a baby girl recently. Picture posted on Twitter on Sunday. So big congrats to you, Jeff. What's in the news with the Dolphins these days, more than anything else, would be the Jaylen Ramsey situation and the speculation that keeps going on. And there's speculations from a lot of, how shall I put it, less famous websites. I won't mention names, but there's some websites which involve a lot of, hey, how about this idea for a trade? Or let's propose this trade, which is not reporting. It's basically throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks. But there's also speculation from more reputable or more legitimate news gathering entities, such as ESPN, where last week apparently Adam Schefter said that more interest in Jaylen Ramsey than maybe folks are led to believe, to which I commented on a podcast this week that understand that it's entirely possible that that's coming from the agent, being leaked by the agent who wants to maybe drum up interest in his client. Let's just say it's happened before, and it would not be outside the realm of possibility. Then there was a report from Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, who threw out some team possibly interested, including the Dallas Cowboys, Washington Commanders, LA Rams, and that was followed very quickly by a whole lot of pushback from folks in Dallas, reporters or former Cowboys and scouting employees, basically saying, not happening. There's nothing to that. So what's the market for Jaylen Ramsey? Sean McVay was on the record along with the Rams GM Les Snead as saying Jaylen Ramsey is a hell of a player. We certainly could use something along those lines, with the caveat that we have to make it fit within our structure and all that, and into the pieces. Basically, the suggestion being they have to make it work financially, and this is where Jaylen Ramsey's contract is an issue, which is why I have said and written on MiamiDolphins.si.com, which I hope you guys are checking out on a daily basis. All content is free, and there's a lot of it. But I wrote about this, that the possibility certainly exists that the Dolphins are going to be asked. In fact, it's almost certainly the Dolphins are going to be asked to pick up some of Jaylen Ramsey's $20 million guaranteed salary for 2025 to facilitate a trade. At the very least, it's going to be a requirement if the Dolphins want to get anything of value for Jaylen Ramsey, which may not be a ton to begin with. You're looking at a guy who's going to be 31 in October, who's coming off a solid season. Jaylen Ramsey was a lot better than a lot of fans seem to think, as evidenced by the comments I'm seeing on social media. Jaylen Ramsey was not bad. There were some games where he struggled in coverage. Marvin Harrison Jr. gave him a hard time. Garrett Wilson gave him a hard time. But there are also games where he was highly effective when he was used in a lot of different ways, and especially with his blitzing and all that. The dude's still a good player. But he's about to be 31. He's expensive. And he's, can we say high maintenance? I don't know if that's a term we want to use. But he's not somebody who will seamlessly fit into a group. He tends to, again, his relationship in Jacksonville ran its course. He started, per the reporting, and he had issues with some folks in the front office, and that led to him being traded to the Rams. With the Rams eventually became an issue with the contract. They also wanted to clear up their cap space, and lo and behold, he winds up in Miami. And now 2 years later, he's going to be on his way out the door. We said all along not to expect anything to happen before June 1st. I was asked in a mailbag, which ran on Miami Dolphins on SI.com on Sunday, whether it's possible an agreement's already been reached. and it's just not going to be announced until June 1st. I would tell you it's very, very unlikely for two reasons. Number one is the way the media system works these days. If that were the case, if a deal had already been agreed with another team, chances are somebody would have leaked it to one of the national guys, ESPN, NFL Network, one of those outlets, with the news, with the understanding that it wasn't going to become official until June 1st, because again, there's a major salary cap implication because of the Dolphins. The dead cap hit that they will take on Jaylen Ramsey gets spread out over a couple of years, this year, next year, as opposed to being absorbed, all of it immediately. The other part of it is going to bet if the Dolphins still are and Dolphins operate very secretly these days. Whatever negotiations are taking place in terms or discussions in terms of trades, more than likely involved back and forth about, again, the Dolphins picking up part of Jaylen Ramsey's salary, and that's going to complicate any trade that's being made there. As to the possibility of Jaylen Ramsey still remaining with the Dolphins in 2025, again, said from the start, very, very unlikely. And if you check the comments from Anthony Weaver, defensive coordinator, last week when the assistant coaches spoke to the media, he was kind of speaking about Ramsey in the past tense and talking about we'll make do with the players we have and confident we'll get the job done. So, but again, nothing's going to happen until June, which is a week from today. Also a week from today, once June hits, you will have the processing of Teron Armstead's retirement becoming official. You're going to go on the reserve retired list would be the most logical move there. And then the cap hit, there is a cap hit to be taken from the Dolphins, which will be what it is now after he agreed to his contract pay cut restructuring, whatever you want to call it, earlier in the offseason. Mentioned Tyreek earlier, but his foray into Canada. And you may have seen a story on the site, MiamiDolphins.com, about what the coaches have been saying about his work and his involvement in the offseason program. He's not practicing whenever they do stuff on the field. They haven't had any quote-unquote true practice. They have done some work on the field during phase 2. You're allowed. It's a little bit more limited, but you are allowed in phase 3. Then you can do more stuff, offense versus defense. He will not participate. He's recovering from offseason wrist surgery. Neither will Jalen Phillips, who's coming back from the torn ACL. James Daniels, recovering from the torn Achilles, likely won't be there, although we don't know that for sure. We don't know the attendance of the folks for phase 1 and phase 2 of the offseason program beyond what we can gather in the Dolphin social media videos that they put out. And I compiled a list of the guys that we have seen that have been featured in one of those. The encouraging things, one encouraging thing I saw was Austin Jackson out there. And I say that only because he ended last season on injured reserve after undergoing knee surgery. But the other guys I saw, and this is beyond, I'm not even going to mention the rookies because we saw those. We eyeballed them with our own eyes. It's usually the way you used to eyeball people at the rookie mini camp, but the other veterans who made appearances in those social media videos. Chop Robinson, Zach Sealer, Bradley Chubb, Jalen Wright, Tua Tagovailoa, Malik Washington, Pharaoh Brown, Tyrell Dotson Jr., Jordan Brooks, D. Eskridge, Aaron Brewer, Patrick Paul, Eric Ezukama, and Nick Westbrook-Ikine. So those are the ones. Again, that doesn't mean that the attendance is limited to those. Those are like guys I clearly saw on. And generally speaking, the attendance should be very good. Jaylen Ramsey was in Tennessee for his workouts last year. If you remember, he actually chronicled that on YouTube. He was going to do a series of videos chronicling his offseason. He wound up doing just one, as far as I could tell. I haven't seen any of that this year. So the best guess, he's probably working out in Tennessee the way he did last year. He's been pretty quiet on social media since the draft night Instagram reel. Not exactly sure what it's called. I'm not huge on Instagram. but it's the one on the little circle in the avatar that just goes live and just disappears after a while. Anyway, this is where he posted the picture of the rotten orange next to a rotting orange next to a rotten orange, with a message basically saying along the lines of, don't want to be around mediocrity because you'll become mediocre, something along those lines. The only thing he's posted since then was a comment talking about how much he admires Ibiro. I'm going to mess up his last name. The Carolina Panthers. I apologize for messing that up right now. Carolina Panthers defensive coordinator with whom he worked in Los Angeles. It was now again with Carolina. Could that be a place that would make a play for him? Don't know. The Panthers don't strike me as a team that's a player or two away. I'm not sure they would go there. He also had good working relationships with Raheem Morris from their time with the Rams, who's now the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. That's been mentioned as a possibility. He also, like Brandon Staley, before he became head coach of the Chargers, was DC of the Rams, who's now the DC with the New Orleans Saints. That's a team that's in massive rebuilding mode. Does Jaylen Ramsey really want to go to a situation that's a full rebuild? Doubt it. So who knows? The Philadelphia Eagles have been mentioned, and we've discussed this before. Number one, the Eagles drafted 2 cornerbacks with their first 2 picks last year, Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. That's number one. Number two, they let go of Darian Slay, who was still performing at a high level in the offseason because he was getting a little bit old and he's expensive. And then number three, do we really think Jaylen Ramsey has any desire to be reunited with Vic Fangio after the comments he made on social media regarding the use of Xavier Howard? So it doesn't add up in the least, in the remotest. So where Jaylen Ramsey winds up, Sean Murphy Bunting was placed on IR with, on the non-football illness list, I believe it was, or non-football injury list by the Arizona Cardinals. I checked out to somebody in Arizona. Could they be interested in Jaylen Ramsey? I was told the thought is they're very happy with their cornerback room. So who knows what's going to happen with Jaylen Ramsey, where he winds up. Again, still more likely than not he gets traded. It's a tough spot. I've been racking my brain. If anybody in the comments knows of any situation like this where it's publicly stated from a team official, we're exploring trade possibilities for this player, that was said in April, and that player winds up playing for the team that regular season. I can't think of any example. And again, if you can, by all means. Let me see what we got in the comments here very quickly. Big Bad John Panaccio, thank you very much for the contribution. Much appreciated. Did want to pass along a message. I'm toying with the idea of starting memberships for the podcast. Give me your thoughts on this if that's something you would like. John, I actually like the youth movement. What is your thoughts? I like it for the long run, but I'm not sure exactly what we would call the youth movement. And they had draft picks. It's going to become more of a youth movement, I think, once you move on from Jaylen Ramsey, once you move on from Tyreek Hill. They did move on, maybe not by choice in certain cases, from Teron Armstead and Calais Campbell, who were 2 of their older players in the offseason. They're not better this year for having lost those 2 players. But I think, yeah, at some point sooner rather than later, it would be nice if more of the key players were younger players on cheaper contracts. So that would fall into the youth movement category. This is where you want Devon Achane to ball. Jonnu Smith was a great story last year, but he's not somebody you would call a young player. So you want the young players to emerge. It would be great for the Dolphins if the young guys, like if Cam Smith could break through, that would be awesome. If Patrick Paul could prove that's the guy at left tackle for the next several years, that would be, for the long-term future of the team, that might be more significant than the 1-loss record. If those types of players, if Kenneth Grant shows you he's going to be a stud. Again, if Devon Achane takes another step at running back, if Malik Washington takes a big step at running back, Taj Washington comes off IR and balls out. Who else? If a good number of those young players show you that they can become foundational down the stretch, I'm not sure that's not more important to the long-term health of the franchise than having a winning record and a season that leads to the playoffs and whatever. Obviously not better than a Super Bowl, but you know what I'm thinking. You know what I'm saying here. I see something here. What do we got here? A whole lot of highs and thank yous, guys. Elwood, the perfect backfield. Yes, it was a perfect backfield in 72, 73, 74 with Zonka, Kick, and Mercury Morris. That was a pretty amazing backfield. And the beauty of the backfield is that it featured every skill you could want. You had the bulldozer in Larry Zonka, you had the track guy in Mercury Morris, and you had the all-around back in Jim Kick, who would block and also was a great receiver out of the backfield. I mean, it was the perfect backfield. Didn't hurt they had a great offensive line between them, but still a great running back group. J Lado, non-Dolphin question. Thoughts on tush push? Oh, I've been very consistent in my tush push thing. I will throw in a Dolphin angle to it. My objection with the tush push, it's boring. I say this as a football, from a football fan standpoint. As a football writer, I don't care either way. No, there is the safety issue. I think is overblown. As I watch football as entertainment, my Lord, is it a boring play. I also don't like from a fairness standpoint the fact, and this is not just limited to the tush push, but on those plays where there's a scrum, the offense can keep going and going and going and going and going, and basically they will get forward progress, so there's no cost for them to keep going and going and going and going, and the defense basically is just holding their ground, and if they push the pile back, they're still getting forward progress on offense. So to me, there's kind of a little bit of an unfairness issue there. More and more important than that, it's boring. And here's the other part too I want to say is, why did the Dolphins vote against banning the tush push? Think about it. Two best teams in the NFL either who? The Eagles and the Bills. Dolphins don't play the Eagles in 2025. They do play the Bills twice. Dolphins can't use a tush push, even if they wanted to, because they don't have a quarterback with the physique for it. So, again, why? Understand, Mike McDaniel said at the Combine he had no issue with the tush push, and part of the way he looked at it was, why punish a team for being successful with an offensive play when it's so difficult to move the ball down the field? Understanding it's Stephen Ross who put in the vote. Is it possible Mike McDaniel asked him to vote against the tush push ban? Certainly. Mike McDaniel will be addressing the media this week during the One Open OTA. And if I get the chance, I'll make it a point to ask him that question. Whether he specifically asked that be the Dolphins vote. The final vote, for those wondering, was 22-10. It needed to be 24-8 for the ban to go through. So it fell by two votes, even if the Dolphins had voted for the tush push ban. It still would have failed, but I do not understand from a competitive standpoint for the Dolphins. Again, it serves no purpose for them to have the tush push be allowed. Yep. A damn sea of hands game. That was a great game, and it's one of the craziest finish in NFL history for those, again, either old enough or, I don't know. It's been, 50 years now, so probably past the point of being overly painful. But check it out at one point. Just do Google sea of hands game or sea of hands finish, and you will see, I believe it was Vern Den Herder bearing down on Ken Stabler when the Dolphins leading 26-21 late in the game. He's got his hands on him. He's bringing him down, and as he's falling down, Ken Stabler basically shoves the ball or heaves the ball into the end zone, and Clarence Davis, the running back for the Raiders, is surrounded by three Dolphin players, and he winds up with the ball for the touchdown. Raiders win 28-26. Dolphins Super Bowl reign ends just right there. Mark, I think the tush push is bringing rugby into the game. Ding, 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 ding. Yep, it's rugby or Australian rules football. It's just boring. Pardon me, Elwood, Zonka, Kick, and Morris, then Achane, Wright, and Gordon, now the perfect backfield 2.0. Okay. So under that scenario, Gordon would be Zonka, Achane would be Morris, and Wright would be Kick. Okay. Yeah, good luck on that one. I'm trying to think who else might have been. Well, I don't know about there were three. I'd have to see who else we had as a third running back. But when Ricky and Ronnie were together, it was a pretty impressive backfield. In fact, I would say that's second best Dolphin backfield, whoever was the third running back. And memory fails me right now, and I apologize for that. But that's a pretty damn good one, too, right there. Warfield, best receiver in NFL history. No, but he was up there, and he was good. He didn't have huge numbers for the Dolphins in terms of catches and yards, but you could look at the receiving average. It was outrageous, and he was a fabulous player. Dolphins gave up a first-round pick for him in a trade with the Cleveland Browns, and they knew what they were doing. Don't know if I wouldn't go as far as the best receiver in NFL history. I think Jerry Rice might have something to say about that. Randy Moss might have something to say about that in terms of physical gifts. But poor Warfield was massively impressive. Marsalis, hat tip to you, Mr. Papar. Thank you, Mr. Temple. Got very ornery there for a while, Marsalis. And again, I don't mind you disagreeing with me in the least. That goes for anybody. By all means, please feel free to disagree with any of my takes, my opinions. You can even tell me I don't know football. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just do it respectfully. That's all I ask. You mean number 10, Richard? I have no idea what that means. Marsalis, do you believe better offensive line play makes average running back better, and also better defensive line makes average corners better? Without question. Without question. And also makes good to very good running backs great or Hall of Famers. I'm gonna go there. Unpopular opinion, Terrell Davis was a fabulous running back. He was also in a perfect scheme for his ability with great blocking in front of him. Do I want to go there? Emmitt Smith, great running back, absolutely brilliant vision and all that. Also operated behind some pretty damn good offensive lines. Barry Sanders, not so much. I have a hard time telling myself that Barry Sanders wasn't a better running back than Emmitt Smith, even though Emmitt Smith had the better production. So without question, better offensive line play makes for better running backs. But there's also the question of, the ability to maximize what the offensive line is providing for you. There's also something to be said for a good running back who can make people miss or break tackles and makes an offensive line look better. And part of the problem in 2024 for the Dolphins, a lot of times, is that the running backs were not doing a whole lot to make the offensive line look better than it was. And mind you, no, I'm not saying the offensive line was great last year. It wasn't. I don't know that it was the nightmare that a lot of people are suggesting it was, particularly before Austin Jackson went on IR with a knee issue, which was at the same time as Teron Armstead started having his own knee problems. So everything goes hand in hand, generally speaking. Obviously, the better the player can lift up another position group that works with it more. But there's not a whole lot of guys who do everything by themselves, and that can go to the quarterback question as well. But it's a matter of degree. How much help do you need? How often does it happen? So, hope I didn't put myself in some quicksand right there. Jason, my man. Hey, Jason, thank you very, very much for the contribution. Hi, Alan. Something I think isn't being talked about enough is that not on what? Is that not on do I'm not yet? There's a typo here somewhere. Chubb and Phillips need to regain their form, but they both need to prove they can stay healthy. Who are their backups, and how do you see that? No, without question. That's a major, and that goes back to Marsalis' point about the Dolphins' cornerback situation, which will be a lot better if the Dolphin pass rush can be as good as it was in 2023 as opposed to 2024. Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips have shown when they're right physically, they are both quality, high-end pass rushers. Except that Bradley Chubb didn't play all of last year as he worked his way back from a torn ACL, which was his second torn ACL. And Jalen Phillips in the past 2 years has had a torn Achilles and a torn ACL. So to automatically assume that, boom, they go back on the field and they're back to their old selves, that's a stretch. I don't know that we can do that. As far as who else, the Dolphins have a lot of bodies at the edge defender position. In fact, Ryan Crow, the outside linebackers coach, made the point this week, I should say, that Dolphins didn't make any additions to that group. They do have some guys, or Grayson, at least one guy coming off of IR from last year, who was a good-looking rookie free agent, Grayson Murphy. They also have, obviously, Chop Robinson in his second season after a very good second half of the season. The hope, obviously, is it builds up on that. Mohamed Kamara is a wild card. Somebody had asked me about him. I asked Ryan Crow specifically and didn't get a clear. My question was exactly what's he need to do to get more snaps on defense and become a regular contributor. And there wasn't anything very much specific. And I asked whether it was too simplistic to say he's got to be better at run defense. And Crow's answer was everybody's got to be better at run defense. So, but he's a guy, again, this is a guy the Dolphins are hoping can produce. Cameron Good, who's mostly been a special teams player so far in his career, is also another player on the roster. Derek McClendon's another one, but the Dolphins obviously are counting on Chubb and Phillips. Ideally, both of them, at the very least one of them, getting back to their old form. If the three of them produce Chubb, Phillips, the Dolphins have the potential to have a very good pass rush, but those are clearly some ifs right there. Marsalis, thank you very much, sir. Marsalis, I never came at you wrong, Mr. Poupar. I did insult Montreal, but I felt bad and then apologized to you, sir. You can insult Montreal. That's fine. We're all good, partner. You're a good dude. And I would say that even without the $5 contribution. Much appreciated. But no, you did seem ornery for a bit there. Maybe I was overly sensitive at that time. Who knows? But no, we're good. You and I, we're like this. We're good. Cap for life. High maintenance is a good term. Yeah. To the Chuckster, Brian Thomas got off on him, LOL. How many of those? Yeah, but there was, see, as I recall, he beat him deep one time and drew a pass interference penalty. That I recall. There was a touchdown, though, in the back of the end zone where, upon replay, did not look that it was Ramsey's responsibility. It was the safety's responsibility. I think he came across the back of the end zone, if memory serves. And I think if you look at it very quickly, it would look like it was Ramsey's fault. And upon looking at it again, he was like, yeah, no, that wasn't his guy. So I don't recall him. I do recall him specifically having major issues with Marvin Harrison Jr. and with Garrett Wilson. Chuck Bryan, Chuck, love this show very much. I do not have to do this. Every once in a while I get people complaining that I keep doing this. I've had it called juvenile, childish, or effeminate, somebody else said. Sorry. Marcellus, Weaver is going to say that regardless. It doesn't prove or disprove anything, just coach speak. Which part? The point of emphasis that I had with Anthony Weaver's comment, it wasn't about being confident that he's going to make it work with his young cornerbacks, because, yes, that's exactly what he's going to say. The point I was emphasizing with Anthony Weaver's comments was that he was talking about Jaylen Ramsey in the past tense. I think the quote was something, he was a good player for us. Where saying without saying, yeah, dude be gone. Two sets of eyeballs, two horses. Have no idea what that means. Finn's take with CB83. I don't understand this Ramsey drama. You think a guy like Weaver would be able to rein him in? Jaylen Ramsey is a very strong personality. Not the first time he's had issues with people. I don't know that his issues are with Anthony Weaver per se. I don't believe they are, actually. And it's not quite that simple. Marcel's offseason pull at straws. Who cares where Jaylen Ramsey goes? Do we care? I'd rather he not go to Buffalo, personally. I'd rather he not go to Baltimore. I'd rather he not go to Kansas City or any team that could wind up being in the way of the Dolphins making the playoffs. Because, again, I've said this for a while now. I think Jaylen Ramsey is going to wind up at safety at some point, and I think the dude's going to be really, really good at safety. If you recall, to me, he's got Rod Woodson, Charles Woodson, written all over him that his skill set, he's physical enough to play there with still having the speed, even though it's maybe not quite the high-end speed he used to have. But I think he's going to make somebody a damn good safety, and I'd rather it not be an AFC contender. That's just me. As long as it's post June 1st and the Dolphins get a good deal. It will be post June 1st. I would not expect a defined good deal. I'd be very surprised if the Dolphins got a ton for him. I'm sorry to say. Brando 72. Not nice. If we go at 9 again, could Ross? I'm not even put your comment. I'm going to in fact take it off. Again, no need to take shots. Still not fire Greer McDaniel. I don't know that it's a lock, and I've said this many times. Let me see how the season plays out and how the Dolphins get to 8 and 9, and then we'll revisit. I don't think it's automatic that 8-9 equals Greer McDaniel being fired. I really don't. I don't know that a lot of my media cohorts, peers covering the Dolphins agree with me on that. To me, I could see a situation. And again, if it's another issue of more injuries with Tua, good record with Tua, bad record with the backups, I could see it. I'm not sure that they protected themselves as well as they could have with the backup quarterbacks. Zach Wilson has some brilliant physical traits. Can he put it together and not be the quarterback he was with the Jets if he has to play? That's a major question mark, and we don't know. I think the Dolphins would have been better off, as I've said many times. As long as Tua's a quarterback, they need a safer, more proven veteran backup than somebody perhaps has a higher ceiling, could become a better quarterback if he unlocks everything. That's just me, though. Robert Jason, thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. Late to the party. Remember those who gave all. Absolutely. Tomorrow's Memorial Day. Absolutely. Thank you, Robert. That's I like this. I hope they do the tush push in Madden 2026. I don't know. I used to play Madden. Stopped doing it. I don't know why I stopped doing it. I think I had kids and they're not into that. When I played video games with the kids, we played the racing game, not a racing game. But no, but that is an interesting one. No, Obi-Wan, if Weaver creates a top 10 defense out of this group, is he gone next year as a head coach somewhere? It's very possible. But again, as I wrote in mailbag posted on Miami Dolphins on SI.com today, to me, it's not just about top 10 defense and the ranking and yards allowed. Get me some takeaways. And I go back to 2020 when the Dolphins were, I think, maybe 20th in total yards allowed, but they led the league with 29 takeaways. That's what I want. Last year they had, what were they, 6 in total defense, but they had 15 takeaways, 16 takeaways maybe. Those are game-changing plays, you know. If you look at the Jacksonville game in the opener, they won the game because of the Javon Holland forced fumble. They won the game. Didn't matter how many yards they allowed. That play won the game. That's what I want to see on defense. And if Weaver can produce that kind of defense with what appears right now as a flawed defensive roster, it'd be impressive. I mean, he's gotten head coaching interviews the past 2 off seasons. He was a finalist for the Saints job. Yeah, he could be gone. No question. And that would be good for the Dolphins, though. That's 2 third-round picks if he gets hired as a head coach by another team. But KC Mad Pup, the cornerback position is going to have a flood of young guys competing. Will be fun to watch. Be even more fun if 1 or 2 of them actually emerge. I would love for Cam Smith to show me the guy he was early in training camp as a rookie in 2023, because I was looking at him and I was like, there's something there. And then got double moved in a training camp practice, then got double moved against Jacksonville in a preseason game. And it was like done. It was Doghouse City. And then comments started coming up. I don't remember exactly the timing of it, but then cornerback coach Sam Madison talked about how he needed to do more things that true professionals do something along those lines. And then last year, the other one of this isn't talking about how he needs to work on his body. Then there was loss of confidence. Vic Fangio didn't have the trust in him. But I saw with my own eyes, again, as a rookie in 2023, my first impression of him was there's something there. Will it come out? That I don't know. Laugh my ass off. How are you going to tell you, of all people, you don't know football? I have no idea what that means. How are we going to tell you, of all people? Oh, okay. I don't know football. I'm pretending. Am I doing a good job? Been pretending for 40 years. How long has it been now? No, 34 years covering the Dolphins on a full-time. No, 1989, I first started covering the Dolphins on a full-time basis. First game against the Buffalo Bills at, I believe it was called Pro Player Stadium back then, against Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills, who were starting to get really, really good. They weren't quite there yet, but they had made the playoffs in 88. The Dolphins were coming off a really bad year. They were 6-10, 88. New season starts, a lot of hype. Dolphins are leading 24-20, like 5 seconds left. This was at a time when reporters were allowed on the field in the final 6 minutes of the game. And the last play of the game, the Bills called a quarterback draw. I don't know if it was a 5-yard line or 4-yard line, whatever. Quarterback draw with Jim Kelly. Easy touchdown. Dolphins lost 27-24. So anyway, that's 1989, and we're in 2025. Do the math real quick. It's 36 years. Please go there. Okay. KC Mad Pup, we have OTAs coming up May 27 and May 29 and 30th. Is that when that is? Oh, it's not put on my calendar. They have OTAs this week. They do have an OTA on when the 20th is Wednesday, and they do have an OTA on Wednesdays. On Wednesday, I can assure you of that. But they have 3 OTAs this week, and media is allowed one of them. For those wondering about that particular rule, league mandates that one OTA every week be open to the media. And then every mini camp practice be open to the media. That will be June 10, 11, 12. Can HN be our CJ2K Chris Johnson? Don't know. I would be inclined to say no, but who knows? Let me look real quick what Chris Johnson did in his first 2 seasons as a point of reference. Let's see. Chris Johnson came into the league in 2008. Yeah, rushed for 2,000 yards his second season. Then again, HN had a completely sick average as a rookie last year. I don't like HN as full volume, and Chris Johnson led the NFL in rushing attempts in that second season when he rushed for 2,000 yards. And I don't see Devon HN being that kind of back. So, no, sorry. Patrick Cobb, very, 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 very good. Patrick, we'll always remember the famous play at a game at Houston in that 2008 season where the Dolphins ran the Wildcat. Was it Ronnie to Ricky, lateral to Chad Pennington, deep pass to Patrick Cobb. He had like 2 long touchdowns, 80 yards and 57 yards like in the first half. Dolphins wound up losing 29-28, I want to say it was, like on the last second touchdown from Matt Schaub to Andre Johnson from the University of Miami, who was a sick baller. No, this is kind of a joke. David Long Jr. is not on the roster anymore. KC Mad Pup, I remember Poupar from way back in the Dolphin Digest hotline days from the 1990s. Yes, sir, you are correct. Actually, that's when I started covering the Dolphins on a full-time basis. After working for the Miami News, which ceased operations December 31st, 1988. In July 1989, I started with Dolphin Digest, and we had a Dolphin Digest hotline. Absolutely. I may have chatted with you on those hotline. So, hat tip to you, my friend. Actually, from about 1990 until at least 35 years ago. Yep. Joe DNS, the dumb part about Ramsey's orange post is that citrus companies put an overripe fruit in each bunch, often rotting by the time it gets to the consumer, to ripen the other fruits faster. Yeah, I think that. I don't know how many people would have gotten that actually though. Chuck, I had a subscription to Dolphin Digest. Me and my cousin are huge Dolphin fans in Pittsburgh growing up in the 1980s and 90s. Very cool. I like it. Daryl Wright, Poop, what camp position battles are you looking forward to? Cornerback, DT, backup quarterback. There is no competition at backup quarterback. And Zach Wilson is going to be the dude. Barring him struggling really badly and Quinn Ewers being like, whoa, lights out, there is no competition for backup quarterback. DT, at this point, Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, Benito Jones, Jordan Phillips are going to rotate if they bring in somebody else. Cornerback's the one for me. That's going to be interesting. And again, it's who can grab those jobs. And you mentioned that, there are a lot of good young contenders. The 3 UDFAs from last year, Isaiah Johnson, Jason Maitre, Storm Duck. You got Cam Smith. You have Artie Burns, who came over. You have Kendall Sheffield, who the Dolphins just got. You have Jason Marshall Jr., the 5th-round pick from Florida. I'd like to see a couple of those guys like really, really separate themselves. The last thing that I think the Dolphins would want is for everybody to be kind of in a pack, because I don't think it's realistic to expect 6 guys to really shine and be like, whoa, these are legit NFL players and who could be starters. I think that's unrealistic. So I'd like to see like 2 guys really seize the opportunity and really separate themselves. Let's see what we got. No. Sorry, we could put that one already. Let's go back here. Yep. Long before the internet, the Dolphin Digest and Hotline was our only link to get news. Correct. Yep. Free plug from my former peeps, I should say. Dolphin Digest is still being produced. If you want to check it out, I'm sure you can Google it online, and if you're still interested in getting it. Chuck Bryan, Cam Smith had 2 different defensive coordinators who didn't play him. That's correct. He also got hurt last year as well, though. He had injury issues last year, more so than in 2023 with Vic Fangio. Fresh Aloha, Dolphins go 10-7 and make a deep playoff run. Sign me up. Works for me. Chuck, I'm not sold on Cam. No, I'm not sold on Cam either. All I can tell you is, like I said, I saw signs of somebody who could become a good player during that first training camp. KC Matt Pup, it was said Cam Smith has been working very hard this offseason, has added some size. I guess we will see. I'll see this week. I will definitely have my eyes on him. Absolutely. Dolphantina, been a fan since day one. Yeah, I'm old. I used to cut out pictures from the Dolphin Digest and make Christmas ornaments, and I still have some of them. Very nice. Very nice. I like it. Thank you, Tina. Chuckster, we're running screen pass again this year. Be nice if they mix in some over-the-top quick slant. I think the screen pass will still be a heavy part of the offense, probably, hopefully not to that extent. Marcellus, Cam Smith has the ability to be a starter, just needs to get the professionalism. Bingo. No. Yep. And the Dolphin cheerleader picks in every paper. Absolutely. Who do you think? Without having seen OTAs, we don't know what the offense looks like. We won't know until the offense looks like until the regular season. I hate to break it to you. That's a fact. Even 2 years ago, you see some wrinkles, but they don't unveil everything until the start of the regular season. Mike, who do you think improves the most in 2025? How about Cam Smith? Wouldn't that be great? A good question. It's a very good question. Wouldn't shock me if it was Patrick McMorris is somebody I'd keep an eye on. I think there's absolutely something there. I'm looking for guys who like start off from a point where they're not. Jaylen Wright, I think, could show a lot of massive improvement. Be nice now. Casey Mad Pup says Channing Tindall. Yeah. Yeah. Channing entering his 4th season. Let me put it this way. I would not be surprised one bit if he wasn't on the 53. I don't know that if I'm going on a major limb right there. I got to put this one up. Chuck, best magazine ever. Thank you, sir. Noel, really sucks seeing the media podcaster content creator hate last week. Glad that's over. Then why are you bringing it up, Noel? Why are you bringing it up if it's over? It was, again, yeah, it's over. Literally, I've never seen Camsman play down football, but he did play. He actually got hurt during a Thanksgiving night game against the Packers. Went down to make a tackle, got his shoulder the wrong way, and that was basically him done for the season. Played 20 snaps as a rookie, so he was easy to miss. Let's see. Marcel has great acting skills to feed yourself this long faking to know football. Thank you, sir. That's a great question right there. Which is a bigger loss, Ramsey or Campbell? That's a fabulous question. Wow. Wow, that's a great question. Would I be a wimp if I said a tie? Don't answer that. Wow, that's a great question. If you take out intangibles as part of it, I think I might be inclined to say, maybe it's not to say Campbell, because I mean he was a leader, he was veteran, showed up, played. Man, did he play well? I go with him, but that's a great call. And it's a close call. David Long wasn't cut because of performance. He wasn't. He wasn't. Please enlighten me, because there was no other thing why he was cut. He went to the Lions, bounced on and off that practice squad. If it was an injury issue and he got cut, he would have filed a grievance with the union. So, and it wasn't an issue of attitude. Why you were we thinking he got pissy because he lost his starting job? I haven't heard that. I'm not aware of that. So no. He wasn't good. He wasn't good at all last year. That's the bottom line. And then the Dolphins, remember, he got cut after the Dolphins got their hands on Tyrell Dotson on waivers from the Seattle Seahawks. And this is after David Long had been demoted in favor of Anthony Walker Jr., who's a serviceable player, but it's not somebody you'd say is a frontline player. And David Long, basically, Anthony Weaver said so, that basically the other guy deserved to play. So he got demoted as a captain, mind you, and not aware that there was any issue again with him copping an attitude because he got demoted. This is a guy who's prideful, but a team player. So I'm not aware of that issue. I think he got cut because the Dolphins got a chance to get Tyrell Dotson instead. And David Long Jr. wasn't a special teams guy, which is why he was cut instead of Channing Tindall or Duke Riley. But he couldn't play, as Chuck has mentioned, he couldn't cover the pass that well. No, he couldn't cover the pass. In fact, I'll give you a quick anecdote. We were in Tampa for joint practice. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention that. Again, I'm very bad at this. I always forget to make my plea to please like, subscribe if you don't already do so, all that good stuff. And check out the website for the free content, MiamiDolphinsOnSI.com. Before I go back to David Long and the joint practice in Tampa, the Dolphins are going to do joint practices with Chicago, Detroit, and Jacksonville this summer. Based on the schedule, I said this on the Dolphins Collective, which is also live twice a week, Tuesday at 8:30 p.m., Thursday at 7:30 a.m. with Doug Lee Durong, TV Fins Talk, Omar Kelly, and myself. But I said this, if you look at the schedule, the preseason schedule, where the Dolphins play on Sunday, August 10th at Chicago, Saturday, August 16th at Detroit, Saturday, August 23rd against Jacksonville at Hard Rock Stadium, it screams in terms of logistics that the Dolphins would have one joint practice against the Bears on Friday, August 8th, day off game on the 10th, day off on the 11th and the 12th, which they did last year, 2 days off after a preseason game. Then joint practices with the Lions on the 13th and 14th, day off 15th, game on the 16th, fly back to Florida, have the one joint practice against Jacksonville on the 21st before the game on the 23rd. This is just me using logic. It makes too much sense. And why would the Dolphins schedule games at Chicago and at Detroit and fly back in between those two when they can just go up there, especially for the joint practices? So anyway, that's not official yet. That's my very strong suspicion. Joint practice last year at Tampa Bay. They did the running backs on backers pass coverage drill or passing drill, however you want to call it. And even understanding that drill heavily favors the offensive players. And it's the same with the wide receiver against the cornerbacks. And if you ever see, which is why I never charted, you don't necessarily see me included in my training camp reports unless it's either a spectacular catch or somebody gets beat really badly, because generally speaking, it favors the offense. But on this one, David Long was beaten so easily by every running back he was covering that, remember, Omar and I were both looking at each other like, wow, this is bad. Wow, this is bad. So anyway, but no, he's never been good in coverage. And last year, he just was not playing well. Thank you, Joe DNS. That's what I'm saying. Finstick, there's definitely more to the story than that. I don't think there is, actually. I really don't. I could be wrong. I see Achane being more of Darren Sproles than Chris Johnson. Some people will be reaching. But in between. I mean, Darren Sproles was a 5-carry a game guy because he was so small. Although, dude was a hell of a player. Achane can handle a lot more carries than Darren Sproles could. But Chris Johnson, yeah, it's a little bit of a reach. Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips going to be healthy by week 1. Bradley Chubb, absolutely. He's doing, again, as I mentioned, he was in those social media posts that the Dolphins put out. Jalen Phillips, question mark. Don't know. Not going to see him until training camp. Wouldn't shock me if he started training camp on PUP. But he could be activated whenever he was ready to pass the physical. Can't tell you more than that. I think knowing his work ethic, it wouldn't surprise me if he was ready. The injury happened in September. So you're looking almost a full year, week 1. I'd say probably it's on the better side of 50-50, but I wouldn't guarantee it. Fan since 1971. I'm a freaking fossil. Fellow fossil right here. What do we got? Does the return of Chubb Phillips an expected boost getting after the passer offset the expected dip on the back end with the questions at cornerback? Not entirely, and don't know that we can count yet on the pass rush being back. Mark, for years I had Dolphin Digest, just mailed to me in Los Angeles. Very nice. And we had subscribers all over the place, even internationally. Dolphin Digest, that's right. Chuck, I moved my wife and 3 kids in 2005, 2009 to Stewart, Florida, just for season tickets. I sat through that 1 in 15 season, but did see Pennington playoff year. Yeah, that 1 in 15 season was. Oof. And you can answer me this, Chuck, because I have this disagreement with Omar. Not a disagreement, but a different viewpoint of, like, I remember the Dolphins celebrating that overtime win in 2007 when Cleo Lemon hit Greg Camarillo over the middle and he outraced the Baltimore defense. And the Dolphins celebrated like they won a playoff game or clinched a spot in the playoffs. And I was like, I mean, I get being happy and all that, but the celebration to me was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird. Don't answer that. Yes, I'm weird. But then that 2008 season was like, oof. And I remember, I'm going to pat myself on the back here. because why not? Um, you watch a practice, we get done with practice. I don't remember exactly when it was, and news comes over that the Dolphins are signing Chad Pennington because the Jets released him because they just picked up Brett Favre. And after the Dolphins, you remember that offseason, Dolphins picked up a lot of veterans, made a couple of trades with Dallas, got Anthony Fasano, Jason Ferguson, was it Aiken Adell for practically nothing, signed a bunch of other veterans, Justin Smiley. And I remember if they had a quarterback, that team would be competitive. And then they get Chad Pennington. And I'm like telling some guys, like, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs. And lo and behold. Is Eric Azukama still around? Any buzz on if he'll be productive? He's still around, still practicing. Been 3 years now. I would say on the lesser chance of 50-50. Because right now, if you look at the Dolphins receiving core, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Malik Washington. Those are your 4 set. Then it's Taj Washington coming back from last year. Any of the rookie free agents they signed, whether it be Theo Wease Jr., who looked really good. Again, the rookie mini camp, it was a rookie mini camp. The one practice we saw. Andrew Armstrong, Izukama, Taj Washington coming back from the IR last year. I don't know, there'll be competition for that 5th spot at wide receiver. Doubt they keep 6, but we shall see. Okay, no, Waddle needs to earn his money this year. Dude hasn't been top tier, in my opinion. He was top tier in 2022 and 2023. Mostly 2022 actually led the NFL in yards per reception. So, but to me, he's a high-end number 2. I don't. How many running backs we keep in? Who would be, if you were not counting Ingold? So halfbacks 3 or 4, HN Ryder Locks, Ollie Gordon, Madison could be a battle there. Dolphins may decide that it's duplication and keep only one of those 2. We shall see. Dana, Julian Hill, most improved. Wouldn't shock me. Okay. What happened to Tyler Huntley? I thought he did okay enough to at least compete for backup or 3rd. He did. Tyler Huntley is not a scheme fit, number 1. What Tyler Huntley does better than anything else is scramble and make plays with his feet. The fact that he's not signed as of May 25th with any team around the NFL should tell you a little something. The passing is very inconsistent. It would not have shocked me, and I would have had no issue with him coming back competing for the number 3 spot. I think once the Dolphins drafted Quinn Ewers, that ship had sailed. But and again, I've said this before, like, big part of the Dolphins' issue last year wasn't only that they lost Tua for 6.5 games, is that they badly mismanaged the backup quarterback position when they left themselves with. They had too much confidence in Skylar Thompson. Kept him over Mike White, which I will maintain was not the proper choice. Would Mike White have done any better than Skylar? Who knows? Don't know. And then Tim Boylan and Tyler Huntley. Sorry, I said this, that these are guys who are basically 3rd-string quarterbacks. So, and do we still have any more? Last one. Okay. Joe, did Poop just forget Ethan Bonner, cornerback? White Lightning disrespected OL. No, I did forget about him. I apologize. He has to prove himself, though. But no, it wasn't any disrespect. I know. How dare I? Bat down. I want to put this here. Shout out to my old colleague. Alan, do you still get to talk to Andy Cohen? I talk to Andy once in a blue moon. He is enjoying spending time as a grandfather and just recently stopped writing for Dolphin Digest. He continued for a good 3 years after I stopped doing Dolphin Digest. He continued. He continued for a good 3 years after I stopped doing Dolphin Digest. He continued for a good 3 years after I stopped doing Dolphin Digest. He continued for a good 3 years after I stopped doing Dolphin Digest. He continued Digest, which was about 2021. But yes, and we're on good terms. So there wouldn't be any issue of that. Just like when Omar left Miami Dolphins on SI and the All Dolphins podcast to join the Miami Herald, and I think him and I were like joshing on Twitter about like we were mad at each other and all that, and some folks actually were buying it, and there was never any issue. I don't play that way. That's not my style. Come on now, come on, Chuckster, come on. Snoop didn't get a full camp. I think he would have looked good with a full camp. Sorry. McDaniel didn't carry the offense of Snoop's skill set. Okay, that's fair, but guys, Taylor Huntley's been a career backup. Trying to be as respectful as possible while being as honest as possible. Can we not pretend he's not even a high-end backup? I mean, come on. Let's be honest. And if I hear one person on here talk about how he's a Pro Bowl quarterback, he made the Pro Bowl in a year where he started 6 games and he was about the 12th alternate. So, again, like I said, I would have had no issue with him coming back to compete as the number 3 quarterback. As a number 2, Dolphins needed an upgrade, and very, very, very clearly. But I think, okay, hold on. Here we go. Last one. That's going to be the last one. I've been going for a little past an hour here. Didn't think I was going to go that long, but you guys have good comments, good questions. So I'm enjoying it. So why not keep doing it? And hopefully you guys have enjoyed it as well. Orlando, 1972 undefeated team featured 5 free agent offensive linemen: Wayne Moore, Bob Kuechenberg, Jim Langer, Larry Little, and Norm Evans. Best line in team history. Was Norm Evans? Norm Evans was an expansion draft selection from this. Where did he come over from? Hold on, let me check. Larry Little, for those of you not, was part of maybe the best trade in Dolphin history. Norm Evans was a 14th round pick of the Houston Oilers in the 1965 AFL draft. Let me see if I have. I know he was an expansion draft pick. For some reason is what I want to say, and I'm not finding it. Larry Little was acquired from the San Diego Chargers in return for a cornerback by the name of Mac Lamb, who never panned out, and Larry Little became a Hall of Famer. It has to be like an absolute. Let's see here. Let's try this again. I apologize. I'm going to get it right here. What were the other ones? Wayne Moore, Kuechenberg, and Jim Langer. Yes, that was quite the line. Expansion draft. No, sorry. Okay, yes, the Dolphins got Norm Evans in the expansion draft from the Oilers, from the AFL expansion draft. They lost him in the expansion draft to the Seattle Seahawks in 1976. But yes, that's the best line in Dolphins history. In the 2000s, has to be the 2016 line of Brandon Albert, Laramie Tunsil, Mike Pouncey, Jermon Bushrod, and Juwan James. Okay. Well, here we go. I got to put this up. KC, Matt, Pop, Allen, your Dolphins input is valuable for us long-distance fans who live far away from Florida. Kudos to you. And there are a couple of other nice. Okay, Marsalis. Zach Wilson is not a high-end backup either. LOL. He's not right now. This is why I remember with the comments I said, I'm not crazy about the move unless I get proven wrong and Mike McDaniel extracts out of him every ounce of physical talent that he has, because he does have physical ability. But it's a very risky proposition. You're absolutely right. So, okay, that's going to wrap it up. Listen, thanks, everyone. I can't say it enough. Thank you so much for joining me. That deserves the hearts for those that don't like it. Sorry, not sorry. Please like, subscribe, catch the written content. MiamiDolphinsOnSI.com. Probably will do something Tuesday during the day. Probably not tomorrow. Monday's Memorial Day. Everybody enjoy their Memorial Day. I'm going to do it and relax as well. Probably sometime during the day. You'll get the notification if you have subscribed to this channel. Tuesday nights at Dolphins Collective at 8:30 p.m. And thanks again for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your night and enjoy your Memorial Day, and absolutely go Panthers.